What's up, you guys? I'm out at a deer hunt in Utah. I haven't pulled the trigger on anything just yet, but I had to pause here because got some news in the industry right now that we've got to be talking about. One happened 2 weeks ago with a new cartridge launched by Winchester that just has me baffled. But the other happened just a couple days ago. This is from Hornady. They launched a major new cartridge for the year. And this one I think has a lot of applicability for those of you interested in hunting, especially if you're really not going to be shooting past, couple hundred yards anyway. Hornady's new cartridge is called the 338 ARC. So it's taking the 6 ARC, 22 ARC that they've that case, and now we're putting a massive 338 caliber bullet on it. So obvious question is why? Why would somebody do this? And I think really where they're headed is subsonic hunting here. To me, that's the real use case of this, because it's a small case. It can shoot supersonic. You can get rounds that'll shoot a little bit more flat out to distance, but why at that point? Why not just use a regular centerfire cartridge? This is aimed at subsonic. So, I mean, picture this. You're in your ground blind with your regular AR-15, we barrel swap, and now we put this 338 ARC on it. You can be shooting subsonic, big old 300 grain bullets in there, and it'll absolutely whack a deer. Subsonic bullets are getting better and better. They're expanding at low velocities and getting more reliable. And so if you're shooting at just 100, 200 yards anyway, man, subsonic hunting is looking really cool. But this stirred up some big old controversy. As soon as Hornady released this cartridge, they released with 2 videos. One, it comparing it to the 300 Blackout and saying why it was better than 300 Blackout. And the other, why it was better than the 8.6 Blackout. That's a very direct competitor to it. So Hornady really drew first blood. They made it was a direct, this cartridge is better than that cartridge video. And then the response came from Q. If you're not familiar with Q, they make like the fix, and they're responsible for like the Blackout cartridges, like the 8.6 Blackout. You guys remember we've showed 8.6 Blackout on the channel before. That's taking the 6.5 Creedmoor case with a big old 338 caliber bullet, and it's going at 500,000 RPM with a 1 in 3 twist rate. And their argument is that twist rate is going to help expansion of the bullets at subsonic velocities and really put a whack on things with that rotational energy. Hornady's case is the 6.5 Creedmoor parent case that the 8.6 Blackout uses has too much case capacity for a good subsonic load. And there's some truth to that. I've reloaded 8.6 Blackout. The subsonic powder you use is it's so fine. You have to be careful there are no drafts in your reloading area because that powder just goes everywhere. It's so fine. And so it's filling a tiny amount of the case. But there are new propellants coming on the market now that will have some more fill in there, so you're using more of that case capacity. That feels like, it's a small thing that we're talking about there. Now, also, the AR15 platform for the new cartridge, the 338 ARC versus the AR10, and an 8.6 Blackout. But Q says, who cares? You can get an AR10 that's lightweight as well. And Hornady makes the argument that the 1 in 3 twist rate can spin a bullet apart so fast, it could damage suppressors and muzzle brakes and stuff. I understand that the potential is there. I've just talked to a lot of guys shooting 8.6 Blackout. I have an 8.6 Blackout myself, and I haven't actually heard of that actually really happening. We just have to be careful what bullets are being used. And then Hornady's other argument is that having such a difference in pressure between the subsonic and subsonic loads can make it difficult on the gas system to make cycling work well. And again, I say, I don't know. I have an 8.6 Blackout. It can run subs and supers, and there's no problem. I don't have to make adjustments to the gas system for it to run. So that's Hornady's argument. Now, Q made a response video. When they did, I was really surprised at the comments. I think there were something like 800 comments that I scanned through, and I didn't see a single comment, not one, that was positive. Everybody was just hated the response video. I think the reason for that is they came off, you know, like sour grapes, like, you know, attacking Hornady because they're coming after the 8.6 blackout. But I think a lot of the points in the video were pretty valid. So Q's argument is Hornady's maybe being a little too optimistic about saying we just need to swap a barrel and your AR-15 suddenly is shooting 338 arc, because it may need a different magazine. Because of the taper of the case, they're saying you may need a curve on that magazine, which, you know, isn't going to work well with an AR-15, plus perhaps a different bolt. And so that's, you know, definitely seems valid. But also there are bolt gun applications here as well. And I think the, you know, like a Howa mini action could be a really perfect fit for this, to get a really lightweight kind of bolt action cartridge here. But Hornady stuck to a 1-in-8 twist rate. And Q's main argument is that rotational energy is doing a lot of damage. Now, I've seen a lot of the footage of the ballistics gel that Q has done, and it does look really impressive, that rotational energy, at least in the temporary wound cavity. The permanent cavity, it seems like there is some difference, but maybe it's being overplayed a little bit, how much that's really doing. So, who wins between the two, between the 338 arc and the 8.6 blackout? In my opinion, whichever one suits your needs. I really feel like they have benefits. If I had to sum it up maybe totally, I would say Hornady seems more designed for subsonic ammunition because of the smaller case capacity, and the 8.6 blackout was more capable of really doing both, being a very capable supersonic as well, if you want to shoot that bullet a little bit faster and break the sound barrier, make it a louder option as well. Now, does that mean it doesn't work subsonic? No, it's great. And so, I don't know. I think if you have an AR-15, choose the 338 arc. If you have an AR-10 that you want to do something with, pick the 8.6 blackout. Okay, that's the one cartridge. That's Hornady's. The next one was interesting. This is from Winchester. This came out about 2 weeks ago, and it was radio silence. I talked to an engineer that I had contact with at Winchester. He said, oh, I didn't work on it, but I'll talk to the guys that did. Nothing. Never heard any back. I called the marketing agency in charge of the release of this cartridge. No response. I looked at all the data that they had on it, and it's just like really, really basic. It reminds me of the 6.8 Western release, but worse. Winchester is just not good at marketing these new cartridges. Plus, this was SAMI approved a year ago, and then nothing happened, and then now they've just released it. Gets weirder still, right? Winchester's releasing this cartridge. Winchester makes firearms, but they don't make any firearms for this new cartridge. The cartridge is, they partnered with Savage, who's released a few. So the cartridge is called 21 Sharp, and it's intended to be a replacement for your 22 long rifle. Now that's big news, because 22 long rifle, 1 in 5 cartridges made in the United States is a 22. And so if we can make an update to the 22, that's a pretty big deal. Now this, when I saw it, I thought, whoa, like it's actually really smart what they did. So one of the big problems with the 22 is the bullet that's required. It requires what's called a heeled bullet, or a rebated back to the bullet, the actual lead bullet that goes in the brass. Because the lead bullet, you'll see on there, is just as wide as the brass underneath. And so the lead has to come in a little bit, and that's where it actually seats into the case. Now that is going to, you know, hurt the ballistic performance of that bullet by kind of a lot. And so now that people are really trying to get into more precision 22 long rifle and shooting them further than they were ever intended just for fun, you know, it creates an interesting opportunity. So now what Winchester did that I think is genius is, instead of changing into a totally new cartridge, they use the same chambering and everything else works in the same magazines, but now they made the bullet go down to .2105 caliber instead of a traditional 22 long rifle bullet that's more like, you know, .2235, something like that. And so it's a very interesting cartridge that I think is going nowhere, because I don't understand why we aren't marketing this thing, like why they aren't pushing it if they went through all the trouble of inventing it. Like they won't even respond to calls about, like I'm trying to put information, they won't, no response to calls, very few rifles made for it. They, said higher BC bullets, but no data on what that is. It was baffling. So 2 new cartridges released. One creates a little bit of a furor online, and the other one just leaves me with so many questions. Thanks everybody for joining us in this video. See you in the next one.